by the end of this period, all of you are going to have completed a graphic organizer. And in your graphic organizer, you're going to write what those major events are. I'm going to have you talking about something that I know that each one of you talk about a lot at home or with your friends. And that's this idea of freedom. We're going to be talking about the contributions that African Americans made to the founding of this nation. We're not going to look at the textbook. We're going to look at some other pieces of information, some primary sources, some artifacts, some pictures. We're going to look at some other places where we can find information about freedom, about events, and about African Americans. And then you are going to work together in table groups, and some of you are going to be standing up in front of the class and sharing what you've learned from your sources of information. So you're going to be making some oral presentations. Who can tell me one fact about Martin Luther King?
He brought the black and the white people together.
Think about this statement that Martin Luther King made. He says, freedom is not free. So what do you think he meant by that? And think about this question. What are the costs of freedom? What are the costs to you? What are the costs to other people? What were the costs to people long ago? What are the costs to people today?
I think that Martin Luther King was trying to say that freedom wasn't free because it was gonna at least cost you something to do to be free.
War and battle. Okay, we know we're in a war right now, but what exactly is a war? Can anyone raise their hand and explain what is war? What is a war?
When there's fighting going on between two countries.
Excellent. Does anyone want to add to that definition? A conflict between two nations. Excellent definition. What did you want to add?
What, like they're fighting for like a land that they want?
Then what's a battle? In your packet you have three things. You have at least one primary source document. Sometimes it's a written document, sometimes it's an illustration or a photograph, okay? And for this, the text is translated because it's hard to read 18th century writing, so the information's there. Then you have a secondary source of information which tells you a bit of information. The third thing that every packet has is an artifact. So in this artifact, do you know what this is? It's a quill pen. When you get your packet, I want you to work together with your table partners, look at, read, and talk about the information in your packet. There's a wide range of ability levels and language levels. For the purposes of this lesson, students who working at table groups that are normally heterogeneously grouped are grouped more homogeneously based on their language levels. For some of the students who were grouped with some of the more challenging language needs, they had a lot more visuals in their packets. The text was limited, the text was edited, and they were able to enter the understandings of African American contributions with what resources they were given in those packets. An hourglass. And on ships, they needed to keep time, right? So this was used to help them determine how far they had gone. So if they knew that to be on a ship and to go from one city to another city took 4 days, they'd have to keep time, because if they didn't keep time, it could be 6 days later and they're not at the city. Are they lost?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
How would they know how an hour passed or a day?
They had a ship boy who his job was just to watch this and to record how much time passed.
I think that this is where they put their gunpowder whenever they shot, because back then their guns weren't like the ones we have today.
I also think this was used for gunpowder because their guns weren't as advanced or something.
Why do you think he joined?
Freedom.
He wanted his freedom.
But most of them got killed though.
Share your artifact or share your primary source illustration or document.
Satyrs used to tell time. There was a guy that always, every time it went down, he would turn it, and that's how they kept time on the boats.
They could arrive in a correct time so they could attack them and they could be victorious.
Danny just described is exactly how the Americans won the war.
where the gunpowder was holded at, and like this right here is where you stuff it down at. Go get her.
They stuck it down the musket, like, so they could get better aim. If they put too less, they couldn't get their enemy, like they couldn't kill them. But if they put too much, they die too by the explosion.
Who did you learn about who might have used these?
Peter Salem.
Who was Peter Salem?
His slave owner released him so he could fight the battle.
His slave owner said, if you go fight in the Revolutionary War, I will give you your freedom. And did he do that? Yes. Absolutely. Was that a high cost for freedom? Go back to this question. What are the costs of freedom? And I want you to add on to your understanding of what the costs of freedom are based on what you learned in class today. Okay, and try to include at least 3 details. 3 specific details of what you mean when you say that there's a cost to freedom. And you might mention Peter Salem, who gave up risked his life in a war so that he could gain his freedom. The overarching big idea of what are the costs of freedom, and especially today as they pertain to understandings of African American contributions to the Revolutionary War, that overarching concept of freedom was used not only throughout the lesson, but was the focus of the information in the packets. So while all of the packets focused on African American contributions during the Revolutionary War, they were each different. They had different information, different sources, different levels of text, or readability levels of text. And the students were all able to engage in conversation and analysis.